Schools are supposed to be safe spaces, places where we grow, learn, and make memories. But sometimes the walls of a classroom hide secrets, and the people walking the halls aren't who they seem. These are 5 disturbing true stories that happened in schools. Stories that still haunt the people who lived them. Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. In 2013, Jenna, a 7th grader from Ohio, had an experience that would change how she saw her school forever. One morning, Jenna's homeroom teacher was absent. In his place stood a substitute, a thin, tall man in his late 40s who introduced himself as Mr. Collins. He was quiet, barely spoke, and seemed off. But Jenna brushed it off. As the class began, Mr. Collins started calling on students randomly, asking bizarre questions like, "Do your parents pick you up from school?" Or, "Have you ever walked home alone?" Jenna noticed he kept glancing at her. Too often to be normal. When lunchtime came, she left the classroom with her friends, but as they sat eating, one of them pointed out the window. Mr. Collins was standing outside, staring directly at Jenna through the glass. She reported it to a teacher, but when they returned to the classroom, the man was gone. The next day, the real Mr. Collins, a middle-aged woman, arrived to teach. The man from yesterday? No one knew who he was. Security cameras later revealed that he'd slipped in during the morning rush and sat in the classroom, undetected. He was never caught. The incident left Jenna and her classmates shaken, always wondering if he might return. That night, Jenna couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the day's events in her mind, her heart pounding with fear. Every creak and shadow outside her window made her jump. She felt like she was being watched. The next morning, Jenna was hesitant to go to school. She kept looking over her shoulder, feeling a lingering sense of dread. Her friends and teachers tried to reassure her, but the fear remained. The school increased security, but the mystery of the substitute teacher haunted Jenna and her classmates for years to come. High school bathrooms are usually a place to skip class or gossip. For Megan, it became a nightmare. In her sophomore year, Megan stayed late for theater practice. Around 7 p.m., she went to use the second-floor girls' bathroom, one of the older parts of the school, mostly unused. As she entered, the lights flickered, but she thought nothing of it. Midway through, she heard the door creak. Assuming it was a janitor, she called out, but no response. Moments later, she heard someone breathing, heavy, deliberate. She peeked under the stall and saw 2 feet, but they weren't facing the mirror. They were facing her stall. Panicking, Megan texted her friend, but there was no signal. Then she saw something that still haunts her. The person bent down, and an eye looked directly under the stall door, staring at her. Megan screamed, kicked the stall door open, and sprinted out. When she returned with staff minutes later, the bathroom was empty. But carved into the stall door were the words, "I saw you." No one was caught. To this day, Megan avoids that bathroom, haunted by the memory of those eyes. She often wonders if the figure was real, or a figment of her imagination. Sometimes she hears whispers when she passes by, sending chills down her spine. And on rare occasions she swears she sees a shadow lurking in the corner of her eye. Megan's friends dared her to return with a flashlight, but she refused, fearing what she might uncover. The memory of that night remains vivid, a chilling reminder of the unknown lurking in the shadows. Sometimes, photos capture more than just a moment. Sometimes they catch something you were never meant to see. During his junior year, Kevin was flipping through his high school's yearbook when something odd caught his eye. In a candid photo of the school courtyard, students were laughing and hanging out, but behind them, in the background, there was a man no one recognized. He was standing by the fence, staring directly at the camera with a wide, unsettling grin. His hands were pressed against the chain-link fence as if trying to get through. The photo became a school-wide mystery. No staff or students could identify him, and security footage from that day showed no one matching his description. But the weirdest part? A week later, Kevin got an envelope in his locker. No name, no return address. Inside was the same yearbook photo but zoomed in on the man's face, with the words, "I see you too." Kevin felt a chill run down his spine. From that day on, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and sometimes, just sometimes, he thought he saw a shadowy figure lurking in the corners of the school. Kevin began having nightmares, waking up in a cold sweat, convinced the man was watching him even in his sleep. One night, while walking home from a friend's house, he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He turned around and saw a shadowy figure in the distance, standing perfectly still. Kevin ran, his heart pounding, but the feeling of being watched never left him. Even at home, he would catch glimpses of a silhouette outside his window, always watching, always waiting. He confided in a school counselor, but they dismissed it as stress and paranoia. Then, another envelope appeared in his locker, this time with a note that read, "You can't hide." Kevin's fear turned into dread. He knew he was being hunted, but by whom or what he couldn't say. And sometimes, just sometimes, he thought he saw a shadowy figure lurking in the corners of the school. Getting detention is annoying, but for Tyler it was something much worse. Tyler was a notorious troublemaker, so after-school detentions weren't new to him. One winter evening, he was assigned detention but arrived late. The door was locked and the lights were off. As he turned to leave, a voice from inside said, "Come in." The door creaked open on its own. Thinking it was the teacher playing a joke, Tyler stepped in. The room was empty. Desks were all stacked in the corners. Then he heard footsteps. Someone circling him, though he saw no one. He tried to leave, but the door slammed shut. A cold hand gripped his shoulder, but when he spun around, no one was there. Terrified, Tyler started banging on the door until a janitor opened it. The janitor was confused. Detention had been canceled that day. When Tyler looked back into the room, the desks were perfectly arranged again, as if no one had been there at all. As he left, he saw a shadow move across the wall, a dark figure standing silently in the corner. Tyler ran out of the building, never looking back, haunted by the memory of that night. That night he couldn't sleep, the memory of the cold hand and the shadowy figure replaying in his mind. The next day he told his friends, but they laughed it off, thinking he was making it up. Tyler couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, especially when he was alone in the hallways. Weeks later he saw the same shadowy figure in a school window at night, confirming his worst fears. Not every student who walks into school walks out. In 2007, a small-town high school faced a chilling mystery. A freshman named Emily disappeared one afternoon. Cameras last caught her walking into the school library around 1:30 p.m., but she was never seen leaving. The police scoured the building for days. Her backpack, phone, and jacket were still in the library. No leads, no signs of a struggle. It was as if she vanished into thin air. Months later, the school's janitor discovered a narrow, hidden maintenance tunnel behind the library walls, one not on any blueprints. Deep inside, they found a message scratched into the concrete. "I'm still here. Emily was never found." The tunnel was sealed, but the mystery remains unsolved. Rumors began to circulate about the school's dark past. Some claimed that Emily wasn't the first student to vanish. Whispers of a shadowy figure seen in the hallways late at night added to the fear. The school's basement, long abandoned, became a place of dread. To this day, the mystery of Emily's disappearance haunts the town, a chilling reminder of the unknown lurking in familiar places. Schools are places of learning, subscribing, and sometimes unexplainable darkness. The next time you're in an empty hallway or a darkened classroom, remember, not everyone who walks these halls is supposed to be there, and sometimes they never leave.